Welcome out to the Recreation and Parks Commission for Redondo Beach. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and by starting with a roll call.
Commissioner McCauley, Commissioner Corman Super,
Present.
Commissioner Escontrias, Vice Chair Lang,
Here.
Chairperson Barbaricos,
Here.
and I'd like to note the absences of Commissioners Rowe and Light.
Great. And item C, let's do this. Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a motion to approve the order of agenda? Are there any changes?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and letter or item E is blue folder items, additional backup materials. Are there anything that we need to?
No, we do not have any blue folder items this evening.
Okay, so that brings us to item F, the consent calendar. And item F1, affidavit of posting.
Did you want? So for the consent calendar, we can just see if there's any items the commissioners would like to pull, and if not, then we can approve all of them in one single motion. So we have the F1 is the affidavit of posting, and F2 is the approval of the February and March 2023 minutes.
Are there any comments, or is there a motion to approve F1 and F2?
I move to approve F1 and F2.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That was everybody, okay. And item G, excluded consent calendar items, and there aren't anything. So item H, a public participation on non-agenda items. Excuse me. This section is intended for members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on the agenda. And it's limited to 30 minutes, and each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes. So if you'd like to speak, you can come on up to the front.
We have Sarah Martin.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Martin, and I am the secretary of the Redondo Beach Sailing Club. In 1973, the Redondo Beach Sailing Club was formed as a 501c3/C7 recreational club as a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating Redondo Beach residents in the art of sailing and sailboat handling, and to help educate the membership in general water safety rules. A successful informal arrangement with the city allowed club members to sail city boats for informal sailing instruction and practice over the succeeding decades. In 2006, the Portofino's development permit was approved by the Coastal Commission with the following specific clause. Upon completion of the construction of the marina, lessee shall reserve 2 slips within the marina for the exclusive use by a nonprofit equal opportunity sailing club, deemed acceptable by the executive director of the Coastal Commission in consultation with the city of Redondo Beach that promotes public recreational sailing. In August 2020, the city informed Redondo Beach Sailing Club that it would no longer be permitted to use city sailboats. Since the city sailing school had ceased using those slips and 2 14-foot unmotorized sailing dinghies in the Portofino Marina several years previously, the boats have had no use or care in over 3 years. The boats are now filthy and unsecured, with one of the 2 dock lines meant to secure one boat having been in the water long enough to grow an impressive algae beard. In October 2020, the Coastal Commission determined that the city, for 14 years, had violated the Portofino lease terms by assuming control of the 2 slips reserved for exclusive use by a nonprofit equal opportunity sailing club. Redondo Beach Sailing Club brought this to the attention of city staff, the City Council, and the Recreation and Parks Commission. In November of 2022, the city sent a brief email inviting various organizations to submit undefined RFPs to the city's Recreation Department for sailing services. RBSC submitted a proposal for the city to assign the 2 Portofino slips and the 2 dinghies previously used by club members to Redondo Beach Sailing Club. After a period of time, we received a response that our proposal was denied with no explanation. As previously mentioned, these slips and boats remain essentially abandoned by the city, preventing public recreational sailing on them for 3 years. In May 2023, Redondo Beach Community Development Director Brandy Forbes wrote to an AES development applicant about a proposed real estate development subject to jurisdiction of the California Coastal Commission, rejecting the application, quote, because nothing in the Housing Accountability Act relieves the city from its obligation to comply with the California Coastal Act, end of quote. Nothing relieves the city of its obligation to comply with the California Coastal Act and the terms of the Portofino Development Agreement.
Your time is up.
Make a motion to allow her to continue.
Third.
Motion approved.
Thank you. The public expects the city to be as scrupulous and consistent in upholding its obligation to comply with the California Coastal Act as it requires of others. I ask this commission to recommend to the City Council to direct city staff to immediately and fully comply with the Portofino lease by assigning the slips to the Redondo Beach Sailing Club, and, more importantly, to call for a public hearing on the entire city sailing program, since it appears that staff is non-transparently formulating priorities and policies without public input. Thank you. And I'd like to submit this, if I may.
We make a motion to file and
Receive
receive.
and file.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Oh, second.
Thank you.
So if I'm understanding correctly, we can't ask any questions based on what she just said, right?
Of staff or of the
Well,
speaker?
I guess, obviously, this issue's ongoing, and I think we brought it to commission a
Yes.
while ago. And I guess I was wondering what the update is. I mean, she gave us a little bit of information, but
Sure.
I can't really remember. I'm not sure if we made recommendations or, yeah.
Yeah. So my recommendation is we complete any other public comments that we have because it's just general.
Okay.
And then after that, we can go into some answering. Sorry, I can answer some questions that you have at that time on any of the items discussed.
Okay.
Are there any other? Yeah, you can come on down. Thanks.
Hello, greetings, everyone. My name is Mr. Renufo Fernandez, and today I went by my mother's house in 215 South Broadway, Redondo Beach, and she lives in the back 215B, right off Broadway Street, a few blocks from here. I graduated Redondo High, class of 2001, and I worked since age 13 for the city of Redondo Beach over there at Nob Hill. I was working for the government. I worked in Manhattan Beach at the South Bay Free Clinic. And the thing is, I keep hearing voices from this every time I come to this city. And I started doing drugs when I started working here. I stole from the safe. I thought I was going to go to the feds. I went to my house in Redondo. I started hearing voices. I still hear voices. At first I was normal and sane growing up as a little kid. I made a movie with Walt Disney in Culver City and San Francisco with Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire. And I did a movie with Mrs. Doubtfire with Robin Williams. My sister got married here, Monica Claus. She works at Providence. I went to El Camino. I graduated, and I still hear voices from this library. This is where I became very insane and hearing voices. As you can tell, I'm a surfer and beach skater. I used to skate and smoke cigarettes all the time and ditch school, and I'd come here and go. I went upstairs, had the key, locked everything, but I still hear voices in the city of Redondo Beach. I remember eating at Joe's when I was up in Malibu making movies with my Italian friend, Giovanni Misanti from Italy, and I was wondering why I still hear voices every time I come to the library. And then I heard negativity from ideation to go and steal, and right now I'm homeless, and I was wondering where is a place. I know they feed homeless at the church. I just came from 215 at the church over there. My mom, I used to live in Redondo. I came over here to the H&R, filled out my application. I'm Microsoft certified. I got my 2000 degree in 2013, and I went to Redondo High, part of net schools. I got a gift certificate from William Gates, and I vote Democrat. I know Jean Grey, she was Republican, and Officer Mike Vitalich, where the dogs are over there. I know the dog Bosco, the canine unit. Before the McDonald's was here, there was a Boston market there, and I've been working to this library, to the other library by the beach. I used to skate. I make skate videos. I make music. I graduated but the high class, I have the most knowledge because I've been making movies since a little kid, and now I'm doing Diego, and I have no place to stay, and that's Dora right there, Miss Gutierrez. We're doing Dora and Diego. And I made a movie with Paramount Production, and I wondered why I heard voices. I heard the last voice I heard before I came over here, because I'm a resident of Long Beach. When I was a resident of Redondo, I live in a boarding care, so I was wondering where can I go with my boarding care to move from Long Beach back to here somewhere, maybe Salvation Army. I need some help because I still
Your
hear
time
voices.
is up.
That's it. Leave. Thank you very much for my time, everyone, and I'd like to thank everyone here at Alumni from Redondo High, class of 2001. Thank you. Now you're going to respond over here?
If there's services that you're looking for, this is a Recreation Parks meeting, so
I was talking about the parks, how nice it was.
no, that's great. But there's resources just right out here, probably
They're
people
still
that
open
can.
or no? 'Cause I used to work at 8 o'clock and they closed it already.
I know that the police station's right here, and they can guide you to know what resources are available.
I know they're still open, these little buildings right here at E and A.
Not sure.
No, maybe one of the staff can clarify.
How come the mayor's not here at the city council?
It's not the council meeting. It's a commission meeting. Yeah, so if you exit, the building to the left is PD, the police station, and they can assist you with some resources.
Okay, and one thing I'd like to say, thank you for Redondo Beach, it's a nice city, Eat at Joe's is a classic landmark, the libraries are a classic landmark, the horseshoe pier, I was there earlier today, and this is my first time skating at the Redondo Beach Park, and they require a helmet, but I skated without a helmet, because I was skating at Hermosa Beach Skate Park Founding Day, and I did the hammer, and it's a very good park, and it's safe by Hermosa Beach. I'm Redondo Beach, and I started the skate park in Hermosa, so that was my first time. I met her at the beach, we're homeless, and we're looking for food, so if you see us on the road, please help us out. God bless you, and Jesus loves you, amen. God bless you guys, thank you.
Right.
Best park resort in Redondo.
Thank you, sir.
Like the Beatles said, Redondo Beach, LA. Bye.
Right.
Hi.
Bye.
Does that conclude our public comment?
Yes, for non-agenda items.
Is there anyone else that'd like to speak? No? For non-agenda, okay. Then moving forward to item A, or excuse me, item J. There's no items continued from previous agendas, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So item J is discuss and provide input on the city's 2023 and 2024 budget.
Oh, so when did you want to answer the question?
It's probably best if we did it now since the speakers are here. I don't want to make them wait through the meeting. So, Vice Chair Lang, if I can just paraphrase, are you just looking for just a general update on where we are with the sailing activities and programs, or what can we help?
I have to say, I don't remember where we landed on that discussion. So I was wondering if you could remind us, and yeah.
Sure.
I believe that with this particular organization, there are two issues at hand. I believe either one separately or together it should be addressed. One is that nonprofit's ability to conduct or work as a vendor. And the second one is the use of the slips in the meantime until somebody is selected, if anybody is going to be selected, how that is being utilized. And I wait for an update, but then I have a couple of concerns about the procedure, and how's it been going on.
So I can certainly provide you guys with an update on where we are and kind of how we landed to kind of current status of that. So I don't have exact dates. It does sound, based on the timeline that Ms. Martin did give, that they are pretty accurate. I just don't have the dates in front of me. But sometime in the last year or so, this commission did look at sailing activities with the city. There's two different components to it. There's the sailing classes, which are run by staff, and then there's the sailing club aspect of it, which is connected in a way because applicants and participants from the sailing classes can almost graduate to be participants in the sailing club and reap some of the benefits of being a member in that program. The sailing club itself was it was a nonprofit organization, but separate from the city. The city had no direct affiliation with the organization of that group. And so the commission, in its most recent discussion, did make a recommendation to the city council to review the sailing program and determine how best to handle the two slips in Portofino. The city council did hold a discussion item on that and did direct staff to look at different options and opportunities of how to enhance the city's sailing program as a whole. And when I say program, I'm including both the classes and the club aspect of the offerings that we have, and to see if there are ways to incorporate the marina and the concern over whether the city is being compliant with the Coastal Act. See if there's ways that we can remedy that. I do think that there are different opinions on whether the city is compliant to that or not. It is accurate that the usage of those two slips do have to be used by a nonprofit organization. And when the city was in partnership with the sailing club, because they are a nonprofit organization, that was how the city was compliant with it. So it's really just been in this interim of when the city has not been in direct contact, or partnership with the sailing club, that has led to this question over whether the city has been compliant with those. Since the council gave us that direction to move forward, we did issue an RFP to all of the sailing club organizations that we did some research to identify. I don't remember the exact number of organizations we reached out to, but it was several. We did receive multiple proposals back, and after reviewing those proposals, staff did identify one organization that could best enhance our current offerings. It is a nonprofit organization, so would meet those qualifications for the slips at Portofino. Staff is currently working on discussing how the details of their programs can best fit with ours, and are moving forward with developing that partnership. And so there has been movement on it, but it's been on the administrative side to try and find that best partner. So we are still working on how to roll out those programs and activities. And so I don't know if I missed any details. Michelle has been integral in all of this. So unless I've missed anything, that's probably more than a nutshell, but that's kind of where we are with that program.
I think we've already moved beyond public comments, but I'm sorry.
Is there a date or a deadline that you've given, or that staff has been given, to kind of execute the program and open it back up to use?
Our sailing classes have continued. We have not stopped doing sailing classes. The component of the sailing club, because that was done by the nonprofit organization, not the city, that partnership has been the only change to our sailing program as a whole. And so the city has continued to do some. Actually, I don't want to misspeak there. I don't recall off the top of my head what sailing club components that the city has continued, because there were some things that the club members were able to do, such as usage of the city boats on the weekends. I don't recall if that's continued or not. So it's really just the classes have continued since all of this action has been going on. So there has not been a halt in sailing as a whole. It's just been how we can partner with a nonprofit organization, and then how they can best enhance what we currently have and offer that some sort of club activities, if it's even possible, with how we have our offerings.
Okay, so it just to boil it down. So it sounds like the Redondo Sailing Club had use of these two slips. There's been some discussion about how to best use the slips and what organization should be using the slips. But in the meantime, they've been empty for a while. And so they're upset because they basically were using them for so long, and they had a relationship with the city, and that kind of just dissolved without a lot of communication. Or
there are actually two vessels in the slips. They are city-owned vessels, but they are very old. And in the opinion of staff, they are not. They're just not in the best condition to be used. And so those boats had been used previously by the sailing club. And so that, in addition to the other larger vessels that the city has, all of those in total were being used by the sailing club. And so because the sailing club was utilizing those two, and actually, I just want to confirm, is that correct that they were utilizing the two in Portofino?
Correct.
Okay.
So the organization, sorry if I'm stepping in, but the organization that we have selected that is a nonprofit would be using essentially those once we have an agreement with them. But the city needs to have an agreement with insurance policies and all of that covered before we can proceed for them to use those boats.
Okay. I think it just sounds like they had a long relationship with the city, and they feel somehow that nothing was communicated with them. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I can imagine being upset if what she presented is how it actually went down. You know, they seem to feel like nobody contacted them or gave them a reason why they didn't get it. And that's why she seemed to show up, right?
Well, no, I haven't revisited this since we sent it to council, just because I thought council was handling it. But I think that the larger concern is probably compliance with is compliance. That seems to be the larger concern. So I'm just wondering if maybe we should make a motion to revisit this somehow.
You know, I think it's within our purview to ask for this to be revisited, a topic to come back, not necessarily talk about it right now, but it's.
Well, because we can't, it's not on the agenda, which is, I understand the frustration, but
But it sounds like the city count, like they're actually on it, and there wasn't an agreement, and that's what was in place. And so the city's trying to get compliant with MOUs in place. So they were fair and offered it to the community, received several applications. And
I would have to disagree with that.
But the city is now choosing, in this application process, they're choosing a nonprofit instead of just going with the sailing club that's been there the whole time. And I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that's the process that they're doing. And so why the city did not choose the sailing club, I'm not sure. But they're treating it like an application process for the harbor. And in the meantime, these resources haven't been used, and they've been, and that's
well, I'm
true.
wondering if the compliance issue has to do with that as well. Not just the selection.
As far as whether or not they should, who should be using, you know, I think we would all say, well, definitely the people who have been the stewards of that space, and they're still there, you know, would be doing that. But it's not really up to us to decide or determine that. We can ask for a conversation, we can ask for a suggestion, but to say who the city needs to do business with in the harbor, that's kind of, I don't know if
that's way above our pay grade. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting maybe a more detailed update on perhaps what the controversy is about the compliance issue. Maybe just a presentation of what the issues are exactly, so that we can get all of the facts, and then maybe decide at that point to resend a recommendation to council. I'm feeling a little bit still in the dark. I don't feel like I'm fully understanding.
Well, it sounds like they.
No, I think this goes beyond this, because here's the issue that I get. This organization was part of it until, for some reason or another, a former employee decided on his own, my understanding of this, as to suddenly they are no longer going to be a vendor without any explanation to anyone else, which approximately, I believe, we discussed this, they came to us about a year and a half ago.
Right.
This person has been gone for 2 years, okay? So I think that the basic, and again, I don't know Mr. Martin I've talked to him several times, I'll be quite honest with that. I don't sail, okay? But what bothers me is the treatment of the community people who've been providing services to us. So he's been patiently waiting for a response from the city, okay? And quite frankly, I'm a little concerned that possibly that we're opening ourselves up to litigation because of the fact of the treatment of what's been going on. I don't know who in the staff suddenly decides that these 2 boats, because they belong to the city, can stay there. I think ideally, either one, you go to the city attorney and say, can these boats stay there? No, take them out. And bet if they're empty. That is one form of this. But my understanding is that Mr. Martin had made an application and was contacted back in November, October by someone in the staff and said, we're reviewing your application. And then radio silence until 3 or 4 weeks or a month ago when I heard during the planning commission that these organizations suddenly popped up. What bothers me then is that if the city has a beef with Mr. Martin or his organization, that they bring it forward or not and just kind of do it there. But that really, it bothers me because we have the 2 issues here of not following the law concerning the slip, and two, at least not telling them, hey, we don't want your business, or we do like your business, but this is what we would like for you to do. But it would appear that under the cover of darkness of some sort, of all these people are being solicited to come in and suddenly, oh, now we made a decision. That bothers me, and I think that's the part that needs to come out a little bit more as an explanation of somebody, a person who's made those decisions to possibly come in and say, this is why we treated them poorly.
I don't think it was a matter of treating someone poorly. We reviewed proposals, and the proposal that was submitted was subpar to the other proposal that was selected.
That may
and so
very
that
well-
was communicated via an email.
Okay, but my understanding was the last email was in November.
No, when we
September, October
selected the other organization, we sent an email to Mike Martin informing him that he was not selected.
When was this?
I don't have the email document right now.
My understanding was, from my understanding on this issue, was sometime last year, was the last email until just now. And then previous to that, before they came before us again with this issue, nothing being done, okay? And then even when the previous director was there, as to the hows and whys of the whole timeline of what's going on here. And my concern is that if there's an issue, because if it's going to happen to him, it's going to happen to anyone else.
We certainly can't speak to any issues that the previous director had, because Kelly, Cameron, and myself were not working for the city during that time.
I'll accept that.
You can rest assured that we work under a certain standard and that we have no vendetta. I don't know the organization personally. We selected them exclusively based on the proposal that was submitted.
Okay, but I would venture to say then that at least as a minimum, that somebody somewhere, either from Cameron or whoever else, should come forward and at least have an open discussion in a little clarity as to the hows and whys of what went on, and not, we'll get back to you. Again, part of my, if you say frustration and disappointment, is because I was treated the same way by people from your office as well in the past. That's why I'm up here. Okay, so I kind of know, and not you, or not Aaron, but I've explained, so I've seen how it works, and most importantly, how it doesn't work. That's what bothers me about this situation. And again, I think they deserve at least some clarity, even if Cameron's got to sit down one day and say, look, here it is. And I think the second part to that is if there's boats in there that are not complying with the law, they need to leave.
So if I may, I do just want to caution, I think this is definitely going to a much deeper conversation. I think that everyone, I hear the concerns, and to be frank, I think this is definitely worthy of a deeper conversation. I don't want to shut it down just for the sake of shutting it down. I would recommend that the commission provide us direction to agendize this at a future meeting, because not only do I want to hear from the commission the concerns so that we can be responsive to that, but I also want staff to have the time to prepare a response and give you all of the details and the actual data from our side and from what we have done, so that you have the full picture of what has actually taken place since that discussion with the city council. Because I don't want there to be any misunderstandings or misrepresentations of what has actually happened. So if I can recommend that the commission give us a directive now, do a motion.
Can we also then reach out to Mr. Martin, or his organization rather, and ask them if it does come back, to provide them an opportunity of their timeline, so that it can be, the facts can be at least meshed to determine whether there's a miscommunication of some sort or what the facts are, as opposed to, obviously, yes, your side of it, but we also like their side as well.
Well, what we can do is we can reach out to those that we know have been interested in this topic from the beginning, just to inform them of the discussion, and so that way they can be present at that meeting if they choose to, and if not, they could submit a supplemental item for the commission to consider that evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so if I can just have a motion for us to discuss this at a future date, that would be great.
I'll make a motion that the recommendation to staff that we revisit the issues concerning the sailing club, and as a separate motion possibly then is that it be addressed to the legality and the validity of the use of the slips, pending the selection of of another sailing club.
Can I add or make a supplement?
Yeah, I wanted to add too about the timeline for approving the next sailing club that's been chosen. So what the timeline is for them utilizing the slips. So
I just think that instead of, I think that if we need to hear whatever controversy you're referring to about the interpretation of compliance to that. So perhaps we need to get like somebody from the city attorney's office or somebody in to actually explain the law, I suppose it's a law, and actually get the meat and potatoes of that so that we have some understanding of that and we're not just hearing different opinions on it. I'd like to actually see it and see what the different interpretations of it are, because that seems to be the crux of the issue. I'm not, if staff, has the ability to send out an RFP and make an educated, decision about who they want in that place, I don't really, to me, that's not a point of controversy. What the point of controversy is the compliance issue. So I feel like we need more information.
My feeling is that what we need is, or what would be good for our commission, is a report on the decisions that city staff and council make. I don't think it's for us necessarily to influence who has the right in the harbor. And I'm not speaking against the club, but just that they have equal opportunity as everybody else.
Right.
And so to do more than that, really it's not for us to say. And to make a motion, I would say that the Sail Club needs to take it up directly with the city, not with the commission, that they need to go with the people who are making those decisions and talk with them personally and do what other businesses and nonprofits do when they work with the city. It's not to get necessarily the backing of the commission, because I don't think we have enough information to really make an unemotional decision. And everything that I've heard about the sailing club sounds great. I wouldn't know why they wouldn't be chosen, but I'm sure the city does. And so if they want an answer, then it's really with them and the city directly. So,
but I don't feel like that's the only issue. That's what I'm saying. Like, that to me is kind of not irrelevant, but I agree with you on what you're saying. But I'm just wondering more about those boats and their use and why they've been there so long, and just some the other elements of this piece. I just think may be something that we need to at least hear for the future. I mean, because I don't feel like I have a good understanding.
If no one has the insurance to use the equipment, then no one can use it, and it's going to sit there and it's going to decay. It's going to be a loss, but the city can't move forward until the agreement's in place and everybody has insurance, and that's how they can't let anybody use it without being liable.
But that includes themselves, because I think what we have here is two separate issues, actually three separate issues.
it's 3.
One is the selection process concerning a sailing club to utilize whatever facilities. 2 is the slip itself, because once that's determined, in the meantime, if nobody's going to use it, rather if there's nobody selected, nobody's supposed to use it. That includes the city, according to the Coastal Commission, because the city is not a nonprofit. Okay. The third aspect that I see is the timeline of the treatment of this organization by individuals, whether it's a misunderstanding, whether it's just a miscommunication. However, that's just my feeling. So I think if we want to break this into 2 separate motions, I think that would be the best way. So this way, if they're separated, they can be addressed separately, because I do believe that they will mesh in the end. But right now, there are 2 factors, and I believe that's the concern is that, and it's not a point of if we can't use it, nobody can, because obviously when the city decides who's going to come back in, they're the ones that are going to be using it.
Yeah, I think, and just to add on to that, like 3-point, issues you were talking about, I think like we're all volunteers up here, and well, some of us volunteer a lot of time. And so if we put ourselves in a position where we're volunteering a lot of time and doing stuff for the city for free, and then the relationship deteriorates and you don't really know why, that I feel like that it's already hard to get people to volunteer to like better the community. And so I'm just concerned that if there's people that are doing things that benefit the community for free, like running a nonprofit sailing club, and then we don't kind of say, all right, well, we've had this long relationship and we're going in another direction. We just want to say thank you so much and we appreciate what you did. Just kind of close it out instead of, it feels like they're very upset because, they just had a relationship for so long and then nothing. So that would just be my concern as a volunteer as well.
I agree. And I think, number one, keep the motions simple, right? Just ask for one thing. It's going to be an update. We're going to get all the details as they come out. But a question that I have really is, in the evaluation process to determine whoever the vendor is, how much are we weighing the prior relationship? And I think that's something that needs to be valued into the equation without seeing, whatever the reports were or what the applications were. I think that's important. But there's also, as people who have served in organizations across the city, you volunteer, but you do know you're on city property, you're using city equipment, and there is the possibility that the city can revoke you off of that space. And I think it's rare, and I don't think it should be exercised, but it is there. And I think this could be, kind of sends a message to other organizations, which I think is what you're kind of emphasizing. And I think that should be, at least hear what all the information is. The legal issues, the liability, complaint, insurance and all that is very important as well, but I think it can be summed up in one motion to kind of get all that information in an update from staff at a future meeting, I think. And then from there, we can have better targeted questions as to what we need to do. We can discuss this all night here now, just with what's already been presented, I would agree. But I think I would like to understand what was the process, the summary of like how it all went down, and to see what they saw would be helpful. And what are we going to do with the boats, regardless of who takes over? The boats, I thought from the last discussion, they were going to be sold or somehow taken away, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I think a principle for staff in dealing with organizations would be loyalty to those organizations, would be something that should be emphasized at the very least. We don't know what had happened and whatnot, but I do know in serving in an organization, it would be knowing that everything that you work for and on can just be like, imagine, a youth organization just being like, all right, we're not going to go with you anymore. You've been here for 50 years. We're going to go with another vendor. That would be devastating, However, a lot of the groups have no real anything in writing with the city, so that is a reality that does exist. So I would just think we make a motion. I think keep the motion simple because we're going to get all the information anyway. Instead of having 3 motions, I think just one, and just incorporate in the motion, we want to hear the summary of how the decision process went, give an opportunity to the other vendors to speak if they need to, and what are the legal issues that we need to be aware of. And ultimately, it's not our decision to choose the vendor, obviously, right? That was one question I have is that's not up to, we can't approve or disapprove who gets the lease or whatever. That's their job. And then also if there's any issue here that we suspect or find out, then that's not even our decision as well, right? That goes up above us anyway.
And I get what Chair Rodriguez is saying, but I just think it's important just for our own education as commissioners, just to sort of understand the process and the legal issues just at
because we're volunteers and we don't.
Right,
I
right.
don't
Like
know what-
I would like to have a better
what is a
understanding. I
PFP
thought,
or
I thought
whatever?
I understood a year and a half ago when we first visited this, but I'm like all scattered and unclear now. So I just would like more information.
I love the idea that the city has 2 slips, that they have 2 boats. I think that's great and they should be utilized. You know, if they're sitting there dormant, we need to, it's a shame it's taken this long to get them back in the water and being used.
But again, I still believe there's 2 issues that have to be dealt with.
I agree.
And
but I just
the idea as
think
well
about
is
the
what
motion.
concerns me the most really is the treatment.
But we're not the morality police.
No, we're
Like,
not,
we
but,
can't.
but no, in essence, this is not a morality issue.
Well, but-
This is a customer service issue.
But we're
So I
not.
think that if it is an issue, that's something where this organization has waited 2.5 years, it's not acceptable on any level.
Right, but like Chair Varvarigo said, like we're the Rec and Parks Commission. I think that our obligation is, to, the people of Redondo, but also to the city council and to, our job isn't to sort of like say, okay, this wasn't fair. And, I just think we need to.
I think it's our obligation that if there is something that is improper, or is it somehow there's some issue that we should point it out. Not saying we are the ones who are going to make law or anything else like that, but if something is not right, we have an obligation to point it out, to deal with it. If it's something that is just a misunderstanding, that we address it. But to say, oh, well, again, 2.5 years is not acceptable for those slips to sit like that.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that I think we need to get all of the information in one place.
Yeah, we do.
And then we're not judges here. We're just trying to get.
We're just looking for an update. Really,
Right,
that's
like
and the thing is that the sale, what they need is their community to write letters to the city. If they're trying to convince the city that they are the ones who should have that contract, there's a bigger story that we're not aware of here. But what would help them is their community, not necessarily us who don't know all those details. But we can speak to the fairness of the situation, and that it would make sense to have the same organization continue on. That makes sense. And so we're asking for an update really of what the city decides and in this discussion. So I don't.
If I may, I just want to just briefly address and reiterate that I just think that it's really important that we just agendize this topic for future discussion. I think that I've certainly heard all the comments here tonight. I do, respectfully, I'm a bit concerned that there's comments coming out saying that it's an unfair treatment, or that it's possibly some concern over the way things have gone down, without giving the city an opportunity to share what our facts are, and to provide you guys all the information of what we have. And so I want to be able to provide that to you. I want to be able to clear up all these concerns and misunderstandings, and really just give you guys the information that we have, so that you feel comfortable in the direction that we're taking this program, following the direction of the city council. So again, I just would request that you make a motion to have us return with updated information on the city's sailing program and where staff is with that, and we can provide you with as detailed of information as possible up until where we are today.
I make a motion that we agendize the item on the sailing program for a future meeting, hopefully our next meeting, and we get an update on all points relevant that have been discussed tonight: the legal, insurance, and vendor selection process.
Would that include a request for the city attorney to review that particular, or for someone to come back with a more definitive legal opinion?
We would make sure to incorporate the city attorney's legal opinion in that. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's see, that was item J1. Let's see, we were about to talk about J1, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The 2023-2024 budget.
Thank you. We just wanted to come and just have a brief conversation with the commission. The city is knee-deep in preparing its budget for the next fiscal year, which starts July 1st. And we just wanted to provide the commission an opportunity to provide staff with just kind of general direction or general focus areas that we can then provide a recommendation to the city council as the city council reviews and adopts its budget. So I apologize. I meant to bring the list of items that one of our subcommittees put together with the assistance of our nonprofit groups, which was Commissioners McCauley and Escontrias. I believe the high priority item from that was to really focus on Julia Fields and enhance some of the play fields areas there. At this tonight's discussion is really just not to develop new projects, but more so on very high level. So an example of that could be, since we're hearing from the nonprofit groups that's a priority, is to see if there's some money that can be allocated to focus on Julia Field, for example. So with that, I'm just here to kind of jot some notes down. As soon as the discussion is over, I will send all this information over to the city manager's office. But I am hoping tonight that the commission can kind of come to a consensus on a general direction or just some kind of highlight areas that they would like the city council to focus on when it's reviewing the budget. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on that tonight.
I have a question. So with Julia Field, we talked about, I'm going to go right back to it, the covering for the dugout. Would that be included in the improvements that you guys were talking about?
That was specifically exactly one of the main things.
Okay.
The covering of the dugouts, the new backstops, the priority of adding potentially a new field, either in the corner by the tennis court on Julia, or if that's not feasible, the league did identify a separate location that is on city property across the street. And I think that was in the email as well. So it was all on, but it was, the stuff that we generated from the meetings was pretty much only a couple items at Alta Vista Park. The other groups didn't really have a consensus or response back as of yet with any specific thing, other than soccer, which is ASO doing the field work already in the pipeline for Julia that they're doing.
So what would you consider a project? So if you're like, oh, we need new swings at the playground down the street, that's not a new project, but if you say upgrading play equipment, that would be a new project?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to see drinking fountains or water bottle fillers at Wilderness Park. They don't really have anything like that. Something else.
Are there any other comments? Or?
I just have a question. Are there any other parks or parkettes that are on the radar as far as needing to be redone? I know that we're right in the middle of Dominguez, but is there anything else coming down the pipeline?
I know that there is going to be some work at, I believe, Andrews Park in Anderson. Just various different projects there. As part of my director's report, and I'll just give this portion now just to, because I think it's somewhat pertinent to the topic. If you remember at the last commission meeting, there was a question of whether the city the city public works department has a kind of graded sheet that kind of gives the conditions of all of the parks. You all remembered a presentation by our public works team several years ago that kind of graded all of the city parks with the playgrounds and the grass areas and all of that. I did follow up with public works about that, and that actually was a joint effort throughout the county. So the county of LA actually did a park needs assessment countywide. And so the county, through the assistance of the city, developed a countywide parks assessment report that included all of the parks in Redondo Beach. And so that was the report that was provided to you all. That report has not specifically been updated since then, but as a strategic plan item that the city council had a week or so ago, they did add an item specifically to have the city create its own status report for all of the city parks. So with that, they are going to develop and go and visit every single park and see which ones are in need, which ones are in good condition, which ones are so-so condition. And so to answer your question in a long-winded way, that's forthcoming for us to have more of a comprehensive list of what's coming up. But current projects that I am aware of include Anderson, which I believe are new playground surfacing under the playground equipment. And then Andrews, I believe, is a new restroom facility, or maybe just upgrades to the restrooms there. But no other existing projects are coming to mind at the parks. Doesn't mean there isn't any, but those are the two kind of high priority right now. But there will be more forthcoming once the city is able to develop its own individual report for city parks.
So I don't know if this falls under the purview of rec and parks. Like at the city of Torrance, the parks department has their own like arborist that deals with trees in the park. I mean, I would like to see more trees go in the parks where there's space to put them in. So that would be another thing that I would like to recommend.
I don't suppose we can put in the city budget money to improve fields that are on school district property?
Probably not.
I just want to note we do have a public comment for this item.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. I appreciate it.
Woohoo.
So it's up to you if you'd like to take the public comment or if you have any other questions or comments before we make the motion.
Yeah, let's listen to the public comment.
So this is from David Martin. I believe having a park ranger like Manhattan Beach would be beneficial for the city in many ways. The Manhattan Beach Park Service Enforcement Officer is a non-sworn position that under general supervision, this non-sworn position patrols and monitors parks to enforce city rules, regulations, codes, and ordinances, and resolves disputes or conflicts among park patrons. I think it's worth exploring to free up our emergency resources and have an extra set of eyes at our parks. Thank you for your time.
And I don't know if we have a speaker here or someone in the audience. I don't know if they wanted to speak, but if not, that closes our public comment.
Are there any other comments? No? Okay. Then are we looking for a motion to receive and file?
Yes, if you can. So I did get all of the comments received so far.
Is there a motion to receive and file the comments?
I'll make a motion to receive and file, and that includes the public comment, correct?
Did you want us to include that as part of the commission's kind of overall considerations for the budget?
I think that's separate, probably.
Are you asking for us to comment on what that is feasible, or
whether or not the commission wants to add that recommendation to the city council for the park ranger?
I would separate that.
You know, we can just send it on to city council and put it in the same motion. I don't think there's a harm to that. The city can see that as a recommendation.
that would also, I think, require a little more discussion as well?
I think it's come up multiple times, at least since I've been on the commission. So I don't know if it's something that city council has ever discussed.
Not that I'm familiar with, but it's possible a few years back.
A budgeting item, you know, to have
Because in
city
essence,
staff.
although the City of Redondo Beach does not have a designated ranger position, those are still municipal officers who do the same job.
I think the motion for the budget stuff is
Right.
pretty straightforward. I think I would say that for a new position to make that recommendation, I think we would need to have a little bit of a discussion
Yes.
before we I'd feel comfortable making that recommendation.
Okay, so then,
The motion with
nodding.
the exclusion of that, the public comment on that would be.
Well, we can just do a motion to receive and file the input of the commission, and we would not automatically include the public comment item. So for that end, if it's just receive and file the comments received by the commission, it would just be the items at Alta Vista, the 3 drinking fountains and water fillers at Wilderness Park, and initiatives to add more trees in the parks would be what we would pass on to the city council.
And, I'd like to add on to there as well, discussion for the need for a park ranger position in our parks as well.
We could agendize that for like the next meeting or something.
So if you did agendize it to the next meeting, it would not be included in next year's budget. So it would be for future budgets.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make it known.
But Jacob can make that recommendation without the support of every single commissioner, right?
Well, if it's an item that the commission wants to speak specifically on, we do have to have a motion and a majority, a motion, a second, and a majority voting in favor of that future discussion, specific on that park ranger.
But right now, like the,
Yeah, I'm not asking for a discussion. I'm just adding,
yeah.
I'm asking for it to be added in our comments for the budget, future budget.
So it sounded to me like the 3 that I just said, that there was no kind of major concern from anyone in not including those items. So I was just going to do a simple receive and file on those. But since this one particular park ranger seems that not everyone's on the same page with, I would recommend then doing a motion so we can vote on. And if you'd like, you can do 2 motions. You could do one on the 3 that this seems like there's consensus on, and then do one just on the park ranger. Probably would be the cleanest way.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. The reason, I actually wasn't thinking about this until I heard the public comment, but I know that Wilderness Park, for instance, in the past had a position that was like a park ranger for the whole park. That whole position, that director position was done away with. And the city staff absorbed that type of position in those responsibilities. And so the idea more widely having a type of ranger or someone, for parks that might need it, or just in general, I think is, an interesting thing to consider, because it would be a new staff position,
Is that even something that if, say, I know that some wanted to have a discussion on it, but if everyone agreed that we wanted to make that recommendation, there's not a big chance that they would be like, all right, well, hire a ranger. Is it gonna need a bigger discussion? So there's like value in agendizing
I would
it?
think it would have a little bit more weight if it's thrown in on this.
Discussed it.
It's just kind of, okay, thanks, guys. If we have like a regular conversation and then we vote and say, pass it up, I think may carry a little bit more weight.
Okay.
The issue would come up also is that position would be under the police department, which would all fall under their.
Was it formerly under the police department?
No, I believe it was community services.
I mean, this has come up many times with the issue of dogs in parks, because the biggest complaint there is that the rules are not enforced. And so they always refer to other cities, neighboring cities that have park rangers, as having that be the enforcement position regarding those issues.
I see. I think I was looking at it through the lens of Wilderness Park, which it's, there's a lot of like habitat there that's been restored. And so it's more of like a don't step on the plants type thing, and not like a get your dog out of here or we're going to rate you up. So I guess it's like 2 different needs,
I think I think it encompasses, I think in other cities, perhaps it encompasses all of those things, or similar. I mean, they don't have a wilderness park, but
yeah.
So I think it probably does need.
Yeah, discussion.
Yeah, and if it's helpful too, what we can provide is, I believe there are multiple cities in the surrounding area that do have park rangers, and we can provide kind of a quick analysis of where they fall in the city organization and then what their responsibilities are. Because there may be different levels of park rangers that may best fit the concerns of the commission specific to Redondo's parks.
Okay.
Oh, so we're looking for 2 motions then, right? A motion if we make one for the park ranger, it has to be separate. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
And was the first motion already made?
not yet. So the first motion would be to make a motion to receive and file the recommendations that you listed there. I'll make that motion for that.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any other motions? Not sure if I can make a motion.
You can, yes.
Oh, I can. Oh, I thought I wasn't allowed to, but.
No, you're able to, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion then to, we're asking for this topic to be agendized in the future of a park ranger position and to come back and speak on that later.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to item J2, discussion of possible action regarding the Historical Commission's recommendation to develop and install timeline signs at Dominguez Park that correlate with key moment in Redondo Beach histories, key moments.
Thank you. So this is an item that you may recall me mentioning in the past. The Historical Commission has made a recommendation for the Parks and Rec Commission to consider the inclusion of historical timeline signs throughout some of the walking paths at Dominguez Park. And so included with your report, the first attachment, which I should mention, I apologize, I should have mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we are having some projection issues, some technical issues, and so we are unable to project images onto the screen. So I did print both of the attachments for you tonight, just so you had the visuals in front of you. So if the first attachment, you'll see this is the information that was shared with the Historical Commission that was created in concept by the Path of History Subcommittee from the Historical Commission. So this was their submission to the Historical Commission itself of how they kind of envisioned this concept. On the second page of that, on the Path of History Committee report, part 2, there's just some kind of a sampling of some of the key moments that could be on some of these signs, just so you can kind of get a better concept and idea of what they were envisioning. The second attachment, which includes the same visual of the sign, but a little bit more detail, it provides some level of more dimensions of the signage, as well as the inclusion of a potential QR code that could also provide some additional information on that key historical item in the city's history. And so wanted to provide that as just some additional information. So for tonight, it's really an opportunity for the Parks and Rec Commission to consider this request and then let us, the staff, know whether this is something that the commission would support and want us to push further in the process for installation of development and installation of these signs. There are two possible solutions if the commission did want to move this forward. One is to see on the monetary side if there is any leftover money in the Dominguez Park CIP. We could then utilize some of that funding for these signs. The signs are approximately $500 for production and for the sign and the pole itself. There would need to be some installation, but I believe that can be done in-house with our Public Works team. So considering the number of signs, this could potentially be multiple $1,000s in order for this to be installed throughout the park. The second option is if there is no money left in the Dominguez Park Playground CIP, it would be to go to City Council and ask them for additional money for this project. So we would do that at a later date once we determine the direction of the commission and whether the commission even wants to put this at the park. I do want to mention that at this location is the Historical Museum as well as the Morale House. So there are historical components at the park already. And so this would almost be a continuation of that kind of historical corner of the park itself. And so with that, I'm open to any questions that you have on this topic, and that concludes my report.
So these images, are these what are these meant to convey? Just the size, like not the design?
These were just very high level put together. This is actually a photo of an existing sign with the dolphins at the top and Redondo Beach at the very top. And then just in concept, an idea of just kind of putting a text box towards the bottom with whatever important date, and then maybe just some important information there. Because the size of the sign that's being proposed is only 2 by 3, you can't put too much information on there, although there is some room to put some information on it.
That's 3 feet by 2 feet?
3 feet by 2 feet, yeah. So it would be a bigger sign, but not too big to where you can put a full text of historical data on there. So that was where the need for the thought to put a QR code for people interested in getting more information. Okay. But the size is also up for, this is not by any means the final design, I should have said, yeah.
Okay. So I did have a note on the QR code. So if this is going to be put around a playground, I feel strongly that there should be text on there that people that do not have cell phones can read, pictures that they can look at. I'm not a huge fan of the QR code. I think it puts you back on your phone, when you're having sort of like an outdoor other experience. I like the idea. I think that it would be a lot easier to support it if I understood the execution a little bit better. And I see some of the dates that have been covered. It would be nice if the dates brought us into present day a little bit.
I think as it says there on the page, it says featured years. For illustrative purposes, dates, events will extend to the current century. So this isn't the final thing, but imagine there's a lot of information that can't be put on a sign that the QR code will just kind of direct them back to. But, I really like the idea of extending the museum to an outdoor space and putting it on that walking path and talking about just some of I think a lot of these dates seem really fascinating, and it's history that not that many people know about as well. And then it kind of hopefully brings them into the museum where they can see more things and bring that attention. So obviously we don't know what it's going to look like. It's not as far as the sign, but it's all on city signage. And does
the city's doing it?
Well, it's a city park, and it would be a city commission that's, yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant they're manufacturing.
They're a historic commission that's proposing it to the city, and so they're looking for where funds might be.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just making that comment. I just think it's a good idea. I think, will the city come back to us at a different point with more refined, I guess, signage like content, or is this pretty much it?
This is just the preliminary. We're just looking for your input on whether this is even something we should look into further. If the commission does want to look into it, then we would determine if we have the funding in the project and then determine if we can utilize that funding for this, or go to city council to determine some funding. At that point, if it's approved to move forward, we would work with the historical commission and most likely create maybe a joint subcommittee between the historical commission and the Parks and Rec commission, so that the language and the events that are highlighted are a joint effort, and that makes sense with the users of the park and all of that. So we would certainly include you all in the process.
And I'm personally okay allowing the historic commission to take the lead and let us know what's the best thing for the history. And, but as far as the concept, bringing history to an outdoor space and in the park that has that history already set up, I think is a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's nice if they come up with a history. I think that it would be important to maybe have some input on the execution. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there would be room to design the sign a little bit differently if that was we would work on that.
I agree. I think I have a third grader at a local school, and they just had to go visit the Morale House and the museum as part of like a community project that they're doing. And so, and it was the first time that my kids had been to Dominguez Park multiple times, but had never actually done that experience. And so I think it would be a good educational tool to have these. The flip side, though, is that, I think if there is money left over, that just my opinion is just that this would be a good use of money, but to ask for any additional money, I'm not sure. It's pretty low hanging fruit as far as, priorities are concerned. So I think there probably will be some, just based on, I don't know, the part of the design that we were involved in, there might be some extra money left over. But that's, I guess it depends on how much money we're talking about, but you just said like thousands of dollars. So
Well, each sign is about 500. So then it's determined how many signs.
right.
So,
Right.
I wonder if we don't have to hash out the details, but if you had fewer signs that were bigger or alternates, and then like, it seems as though there would be multiple events on each sign, because right here you have like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, or
You have
more
like quite a few.
Yeah, more information on one sign perhaps instead of the QR code, which I never really thought of. That you got me thinking. I never really thought of that. But yeah, especially if this is supposed to be tailored towards students or elementary, middle school students that typically don't have phones. Perhaps we do put more, language on each sign. It's just food for thought, but I kind of agree with that.
It looks to me like they probably chose the cheapest way to put information on a sign. And execution as well. You can put all that info, make it electronic and not be restricted to space so much. And so I think they're just hoping to get quick interest as people go along. But it would be cool to have a full immersive, exhibit with voices that talk to you and, buttons you push and stuff like that.
Well, we didn't go that far. Just said words.
Yeah.
I would have some concerns about this. Most importantly is the cost. I think that the Morale House as a historical site should remain as such, and that $50 or $500 per sign is very costly. And not only that, there's also the other ramifications on this, as well as maintenance of these signs. Who's going to maintain them? How much money is that going to cost as well? Okay, because suddenly we look at the cost and then we don't forget that in 3 years or 2.5 years, you're going to have to replace this sign at another $500. And where's that going to come from? Okay, second part I think looking at is that the historical issues should be in the Morale House or in that area to draw people into the Morale House. I'm there. I spent quite a bit of time at Dominguez, okay, and I don't see a lot of people go in there, okay. So I think if we have an exhibit as such like this, it's able to do that, either rotate it in and out, it's going to get people to utilize it more and possibly more donations or more other things with that. The other side I'm also looking at is the cluttering of the park, of signs every 30, 40 feet or whatever else. We've got plenty of signs as it is right now that nobody, reads and stuff. I'm just concerned about that. Thirdly is we're looking at who's going to put the sign up. Public Works, okay? Public Works, is my understanding right now, is they're running around just trying to put fires out all over the city. And everything that doesn't get done or repaired or anything else is because something new is thrown on their plate, okay? I think we need to slow down a little bit, save a little cash a little bit for a while. Just because the city has money doesn't mean we need to spend it all right away. I think there's a fiscal issue with this as well, is that, I understand that because we're putting 250,000 or probably about 400,000 into the playground area. And if there's money left over, that should be saved for the playground, not to put up something else like that. And I don't even know that if we can even do that, taking funds from the playground to put up a sign as well. I'm more on the side of a little more fiscal responsibility. If the Historical Society has a budget, then it should come out of their budget, not a Parks and Rec budget.
Is that why they're coming to us? Because they want the project, the Parks and Rec project the playground project to kind of fund this project?
If there was funds available, it wasn't a matter of they wanted this over another element. It was if there's funds available, this would be something that they thought could be a nice tie-in from the playground over to the museum area.
Okay,
So just for consideration.
okay.
Again, I'm more apt to, historical goes into the historical site, and the money, again, that we would use for the playground stays with the playground, and then anything beyond that can stay in the general fund, and we can find something else that or even half that money.
Not that I need to bring in another element, but would these signs be considered art?
No,
No.
Because they have a lot of money.
they do.
No, I agree with Commissioner Contreras, and I think the money should come from the Historic Commission or from the museum through fundraising or something like that, if there is extra funds, or going directly to the city in budget hearings and requesting for money to be put aside for an additional project. I commend the commission, the Historic Commission, for looking for creative ways to get history out in the community. And this isn't the only idea. They've been working, I think, for several years, coming up with ways to get the citizens of Redondo more connected to the history here. And also to get people into the museum. And I think it's a great idea as far as funding it and where the funds come from. I think first preference would be on the museum bringing their own money or fundraising, and then second would be if there is an excess for Dominguez Park. We're not really sure about that. And it's not already needed somewhere else, because you have the dog park and you have the new playground. So, but
I mean, I would be fine continuing the discussion based on more information, like a refined plan about what would go on each sign, stuff like that.
I was also going to recommend we could always revisit this as well once we get closer to the finish line for Dominguez Park and see if there's funding available, because that does kind of change the nature of the discussion. If the commission would like to look at it under that different lens, it's truly up to you how you would like to.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if there is money left over, Commissioner Escontrias is sort of implying that the money would just stay in sort of like a Dominguez Park fund, essentially? And would that money then be used for Dominguez Park repairs, or does that money carry over into other things?
So this is another director's report item, so I'll tackle it right now because it's definitely pertinent with this. So there was a question about that. What happens to CIP money that's left over? And essentially, any unspent CIP money, if the project is fully closed out and they're essentially what happens is that money is reallocated back to its funding source. So if it came from general fund, it'll go to general fund. If it came from Quimby fees, goes back to our Quimby account. So it just truly depends on where that money came from. In this case, as we get closer to the finalization of Dominguez Park Playground, if this was something pending and there was money that was left and the commission wanted the reallocation of those funds for this, for the signs, we would have to go back to City Council and ask them for permission to do that. That's not something we as staff can just administratively change the scope of that project. So there would be some checks and balances there. So that's where I'm saying if the commission has an interest in utilizing some of that money, if it is there, we would come to you with enough time to consider whether you want us to then go back to City Council before the project closes out to reallocate the money there. Otherwise, as soon as that project is completed, that money will get put back to whatever its original funding source is.
So it's not just going to sit there waiting around for something to break and then to use it for Dominguez Park?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear.
Provided that it is closed.
Once it's closed, it needs to be fully closed. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
And that also based on who's running the project would make that determination as to at what point is it closed.
Once the scope of the project as it's written today and funded for is
Right.
completed, it would be closed at that point,
Right,
yes.
but at that point would determine based on the work that's done or it needs to get done later. So it can be extended a little bit of time, so if something
Of
else
course,
breaks,
yes.
that funding can go back to fix something at that point.
Wait, I thought you just said
Yeah,
when
I
the
think
scope
I'm
is
getting-
done, it's
yeah,
closed.
I'm
No,
When
if
the-
it's closed, but while the period is opened, if something breaks, that funding would fix it.
But the chances that it's going to break after it's just been installed is probably
Yeah,
pretty low,
if things
right?
that are going to break, you know, a year or two after, or several years after the
Right.
construction of a new playground.
Right, but it's my understanding that sometimes some of these projects stay open a lot longer than that.
And I should also say that it's pretty uncommon for projects, especially ones like Dominguez Park that has so many different elements to it, for there to be any funding left in the account. So this is very hypothetical, especially with the inflation the way it is. A lot of products and equipment and manufacture, and some of the equipment is even specially made, specially manufactured for the city. I'm hopeful, but I'm also, you know, it's less likely that there may be funding available, but I just want to put it out there that if there is, we could return with another discussion item for the commission to reconsider at that point, if you would like to.
Yeah, I think there's like $125 difference between the selection of what you guys.
No, but there's the surfacing, I think, is going to be cheaper.
The playground surfacing did come in a lot less expensive than what the initial estimate was. I don't remember the exact figure, but that entire estimate goes into the larger pot for the entire park playground. So if there's another element of the park that needs to happen that maybe was unexpected, it would pull from that. And so as a whole, it's unlikely there will be funds available, but there's always a chance of that.
Does that include like all the landscaping around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all included in the same project.
I mean, I personally don't see anything wrong with continuing the conversation if there's interest from anyone else
Yeah,
on the.
if I could just add a couple of things, so in my opinion, there's too many signs for Dominguez Park. I think if they're talking 30 or 40 signs for the loop, I think that's a little bit too much. So the number, even at 30 signs, is like $15,000, which isn't really terribly too expensive for what they're trying to do. I like the concept. I like the idea of having historical information. I'm okay with the scan code because, you know, people, their phones are everywhere anyway, you know, and if it would reduce the signage cost because you'd have less information on it, that might be a reason why. But what I would actually recommend is to not limit the signs being at Dominguez. Why just have them there? I think this could be a good idea to kind of do citywide and maybe start with like 10 signs, 1 or 2 at Dominguez, and then others at different parts of the city that may direct people to the Moral House and to Dominguez as well, because people walking down by the beach at the pier have no idea of the history at the pier, you know, the wharf that was there and the hotels and whatnot. And so there could be an opportunity to kind of do it citywide. And my last recommendation would be forget about trying to piggyback on the budget for Dominguez Parks for this project. I just do your own standalone funding. It's not going to be too terribly expensive. I would recommend just figure out what it's going to cost. So I'm fine with agendizing it. I think it's something worth pursuing and getting more details. As far as the signage goes, we could probably make it a little bit more attractive than what it is, but that's just kind of where it's at. That's easy to fix. So,
I agree with what you're saying. Again, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Then the other action item, I'm reading off what what you're looking for. The cost on that. So yeah, I would say we asked the city or the staff to look into the estimated cost of what the whole thing would cost. But I think regardless, even if we went citywide, I think 30 or 40 signs is kind of a little crazy. I think you start small, put 10 good signs somewhere around, and I put them everywhere around the city. And then it'd be a lot cheaper, it'd be a lot easier to do. And then if it works and it's good, then maybe you can expand at a future date.
Yeah, I would like to just piggyback on that just to make sure the commission is aware that there is an existing program called the Path of History that it doesn't focus on key dates throughout the city, but it focuses on key locations. And so there's, I want to say 10 or 12 signs throughout the city, but there's a comprehensive list of 22 signs that eventually will be put up. So it doesn't follow a timeline, which this program would, but it definitely highlights key locations throughout the city and includes very descriptive information of its historical significance.
So if it's then going to be limited to at Dominguez Park, then I would do condense the signs, get less signs. 30 or 40 signs for Dominguez Park is way too much. I would say then maybe 5 or 10 at Dominguez and put 3 or 4 items on each sign.
Yeah.
And it would be cheaper.
Yeah, I agree. Fewer signs, more info on each sign.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not a huge loop to go around that park. I mean, 30 signs.
But I think, and I agree, with especially the path of history type of deal. I don't know if you've been, I guess, brave enough to go to downtown LA. There's several spots, like, for example, right in front of Grand Central Market. It gives a whole history of that location. Down in the South Central LA, the Dunbar Hotel, which talks about how jazz was in that area. I think if they're going to spend this kind of money, then they should go do that citywide, just like he suggests. I think it's more reasonable. I think it's a treasure hunt, if you will, as opposed to putting it in one park for that. And I think, again, my concern is if you take a look at the number of people who utilize that path, it's not as though, it's not like, for example, Aviation Park, where people go there a lot. Okay, I can probably say no more than 10 people, or if that, 5 people per day walk that path. Sometimes I'm there for most of the day. I think if they would probably go back to say, refocus this on a citywide basis to a lot of other people that come in and such like that, and talk about the history of it, and then refer them to the Morale House that way. But my concern, especially at Dominguez Park, is sign clutter. It's like having billboards all over the place, and after a while, it becomes dangerous for these kids to run through the park and everything else, because you got to pull every 30 feet.
I think that once the park is done, there'll be a lot more traffic. Yeah, placement of the signs would be of concern if it was right by the playground. But I think there's going to be a lot of parents standing around watching their kids play. I mean, I think it's great. I don't know if it's worth the money. I don't know if the design's going to, be executed in the way that would make these attractive and, worth the cost. But I would make a motion if everyone else is ready.
Yeah.
If I may, before we make a motion, I just want to make sure we don't have any public comment. I apologize for interrupting.
We don't have any public comment at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my motion would be to continue the conversation when we have a little bit more information on if there's leftover funds and if there's more information on the design direction.
My question would be, I like the idea of making it citywide. I think that makes more sense for sure, versus being all in one park where it's not necessarily location specific, but however, you're saying there's already a different program that's called what was that called again?
Path of History.
Path of History. It's a little different, but it's kind of doing the same thing. So is this conflicting with or is it the same thing in essence? And
It's not, because this is just highlighting key moments in the city's history, and the Path of History highlights key locations throughout the city. So there might be some crossover where one of the Dominguez Park signs might highlight a location throughout the city because it was important in that century or whatever it's detailing. But they're two separate kind of focused programs.
Was the Historic Commission included on that Path of History? Is that
they actually oversee that program. So they have a subcommittee, and actually that's the subcommittee that made this recommendation for the signs at Dominguez Park.
I see.
It feels
but it's not a part of that program.
It's not. It would be completely separate. Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like it's an extension of the museum. So it kind of enhance the museum experience and sort of take it outside. I mean,
it'd be good for like field trips with kids and stuff.
Yeah.
I get that aspect of it, but I would just, 30 signs is just a lot of signs for Dominguez. I think now I understand it a little better. I think citywide and tying it into that, but that kind of already does exist. So I think they're looking only at Dominguez Park. And I would just be like, put the information out there. 30 signs can be on 5 or 6 poles, right? They can still be the signs, but just put multiple on each pole. I would actually amend my advice to say that, like it just limit it to 5 or 10 poles, new poles, and put all the information you have onto those poles, which could be 4 signs on each pole. I don't know how you would do it, but I just think putting more poles and walking around that area is just crowded. But yeah, I do see the benefit of the historical stuff with the kids at the house and on a field trip or something.
Are all these notes going to make their way back to the subcommittee, or are they just looking for a motion?
Well, I was just thinking that actually right now, because another option for the commission to consider is a motion to send this back to the historical commission and say, here's our comments with this program, here's our concerns. Do you want to reconsider this? Do you want to reimagine it? Or do you want to just say, you know what, this probably is not gonna work at this time. So we could do something like that. You can also, if you'd like to, ask them to reconsider this program, but maybe hone it in on just that Heritage Court area where the museum and the Morel House is. There's that center fountain. There's the orange garden next to the museum. There's space in that little kind of pocket to put some signs. And so maybe that could be a focus that they can maybe reimagine it, and we can utilize the request then of the commission would be, would you support the reallocation of any extra funds for Dominguez Park for this project that celebrates the city's history in Heritage Court? So I know there's countless options here, but as you were speaking, I was thinking that could be another opportunity for the commission to get some input on this, to reimagine it, considering some of the comments that the commission has had tonight.
I think that sounds kind of what we're looking for, just based off of our feedback, that we like the idea. Maybe not so many signs, or finding another, a broader attachment to the rest of the city through their other programs, since it's the same committee that's working on both of these things. Could there be a way to merge or expand and have not so much sign litter through the park, but and then
I think for clarification, I would have to say that I don't like the idea, because you said that you may, I don't. So
there.
Well, can you take all these comments and make sure that the historical commission sees all of?
Well, I would ask for a motion so I can give them very clear.
Okay.
Majority of the commission has these sets of comments for you to
Would
consider.
it be like a receive and file, but send it to the historical commission?
Well, the motion would be to provide the following comments to the commission
Okay.
on this program.
And then
we have to list them.
Would we also do the motion to agendize it for a future meeting?
Would we just wait
Not
for
if
it
you're
to come
sending
back?
it back to the historical
Wait
commission.
until
We
they come
would
back.
kind of send it to them and then wait for them to respond one way or the other.
So then I would say, as our advice, maybe we put questions, like why 30, 40 polls? Is that necessary? Is there a way to reduce that number?
I would disagree with that as well. I think what we should just do is that we make a motion, that we send this back to them for reconsideration based on comments that we had made in our concerns, and let it go at that. So let them decide whether they want to bring it back revised or just totally kill it. Again, because I think it's quite obvious, my feeling anyway, and it would appear that your feeling was, money's not going to come from the park.
Yeah, if it's purely, if that's the main impetus of this, is to kind of piggyback on the funding, I think that's, while I would be fine with that, it just seems like that's probably unlikely, and even if it was, it shouldn't be that hard to
But for me, that's one of the check marks of no money.
get $15,000.
But we don't even have to, it's not even,
Right.
it's not even an issue in the present moment. So, right, because we don't even know if we're going to have money. So I feel like what we should focus on is sending them our notes and seeing if they want to come back after considering our notes. So in the motion, do we need to list what we've discussed, or can you just send what we've discussed?
I would prefer if the motion included, I can try and paraphrase what my notes say, and you guys can let me know if I missed anything, but the problem is there's not a full consensus. So I just want to make sure that the motion is fully captured what the majority of the commission wants us to provide to the historical commission.
What's the best way of doing that? Just
I think we would benefit from a revisit, the historic commission coming back. If we want to vote on it at that point, then we will. If we disagree or not. At this point, we don't have like a full, we're just saying we would, it's a good idea, more or less, but we're not ready to make a decision on it.
But do we want them to hear what we've discussed and then come back with a revision? Or you just don't want to do anything?
Yeah, I think so. I think,
Okay.
they're interested in it. And if they hear our concerns and want to come back, with revisions, then.
Okay.
So do you want me to go over kind of my notes and you can let me know if I've missed anything and then we can just include that in the motion? Or does someone want to take a stab at paraphrasing? I don't want to overstep, but I want to assist if I can.
I don't want to try and paraphrase.
I would say, listen, let us hear your notes. And then we can kind of-
So I'm just going to kind of generalize these a little bit. That some of the concerns / comments are that there is concern over potentially the number of signs included, the funding source for the project, and the potential locations for the signage, as well as the design, which of course, knowing that would be finalized at a later date. But in a nutshell, that would be kind of the key concerns of the commission, and they can kind of reconsider. Did I
would
miss
say-
something?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a difference between the number of signs or any signs. And that's my input of, I don't want any signs.
But don't we have to vote on this?
We do,
Say that
yes.
We didn't have consensus at the commission, and there were some questions, as far as coming back.
Or you can put from 0 to 50 signs. There's a concerns about, because other than saying the number, it would imply that, hey, well, if you cut it down for 20, that we would all agree. Well, maybe not. Okay.
Is that important information to convey to them in the motion, that there's one person that doesn't support the idea?
So what we could do is we can obviously vote on the motion, and if Commissioner Contreras doesn't agree with it, he can vote nay on the vote, and we would let them know that it was a 4-1 vote at that point. We can certainly do that.
Okay.
That's fine.
So we make a motion to send to the Historical Commission the notes that Kelly just read. And that's the motion.
And to consider whether to
Or to instruct them
review
to, if they would like to send.
Sure,
a
whether they want to
newer
reconsider.
version of, yeah,
Refine.
Does that make sense?
Is that the motion?
yeah.
A second.
Okay. So I just want to, who is going to make the motion? I can't
Oh,
make the
I'm
motion.
sorry. I thought he made it.
He did.
Oh,
Oh, okay, got it.
Make the
Sorry,
motion.
I missed it. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So then, Commissioner Rodriguez, Chairperson Rodriguez, just for the minutes, Secretary, if you can do a vote and then ask for any in opposition, just so we can make sure we have it on the record.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, did we want to move on to the final item? Do you want me to do staff report?
Yes, let's do that. J3? Or
Okay.
the K, letter K, is that right?
It's J3.
Oh, J3.
Yeah, we're on J3. So this is just the standing item and provides an opportunity for any of the active subcommittees on the commission to provide an update to the commission. We have the nonprofit group outreach subcommittee, which again, if there's any updated name changes there that makes more sense, please let me know. We have the joint commission fundraising subcommittee, the historical commission liaison role, and the volunteer acknowledgement program. So I will turn it over to any subcommittee members that may have an update to share with the commission.
I don't have anything further from the youth or the facility users committee, other than the recommendations that they had put forward for the budget stuff. And I don't think I have anything on any of those.
I think the other one would be the awards.
The volunteer subcommittee?
Volunteer, yes. I guess what an update on that was, interestingly enough, the council had a discussion last night concerning a volunteer program.
They had a concern?
They were like, hey, we need to do one.
Oh.
Interesting, yeah, it is. Because they actually had two people from staff who were actually designated to look into it and to try to decide how one could be run and how more volunteers or more people from the city can be involved in it. But so I up and spoke as a person as a volunteer and such. Interestingly enough, it would appear that the council was unaware, and so were the two other people. In fact, in watching their faces,
You don't read our minutes?
I don't know. We kind of pointed it out that way. And there was a little like, wow, yes. And we've been doing this, and also bringing up the community outreach program because they says, oh, we're going to we want to do that. I said, well, we've been doing it almost 6 to 8 months ago. And so they were like, oh. And it was a bit interesting in watching some of the faces of, we didn't know this. Now I had a discussion with Kelly and she's up-channeled it. How or why it didn't get up there, I don't know. But I think the good side of that is that it shows that we're concerned about the people that we serve in the community and that we've been doing stuff. And I think that reflects very, very good on us. And I got a few comments of people saying, hey, this is a good thing. So, and one of the things that we did discuss, I said, look, the proposal that was submitted and then Kelly had her input and everything else is a plug and play. Just change the name on it. So hopefully they'll run with it and do something with it. I think it just reflects very well on the commission is that, and that most other people are aware of it now. But it was kind of funny to watch it. So.
I know that a community staff member was honored by an organization for their help.
Yes.
And that could have been what triggered it.
No.
But I'm not sure.
Well, this idea that kind of came up for this was proposed to one of the council people 2.5 years ago. And every 6 months or so, I would bring it up to the council again saying, where's this at? Where's this at? Because I brought it up to him. And that's when he said, well, staff is kind of working on it. We'll get to it. And so that's why I was asked to come in to speak to it as well as to how it kind of works. And then because also that council person was aware of the fact that we had already, actually two of the council people were aware that we had already implemented this or was actually working on it because they have a copy of the program. But they got it 2 months ago. The day was when we approved it, said we were going to do it, a copy was sent to them and saying, hey, why can't you do this citywide? And I think that's could have been, because I also had a conversation when when we had the new, city manager. And I spoke to him and said, why don't you do this? Why don't you coordinate volunteers? Oh yeah, the response was, when we bring in an assistant city manager, that'll be their job, which was about a year and a half ago. So that's kind of how a little bit of the timeline of how it went. How and when and how between that time, whatever, I don't know what they've done as much. But I think so far that what we've done so far can serve as a template for them and just makes it easier if they want to go citywide. To me, it doesn't really matter as to, how or why they do it. Just as long as if we can get more people involved in it and more volunteers in this city, I think it's a good goal.
Yeah, because they wanted to do like a appoint a person or something like that, the position?
They talked about hiring somebody.
Yeah, like hiring a person to organize for volunteers.
Right, my suggestion was, why don't we get a volunteer?
Oh, really?
Group needed like extra help on whatever weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
They would put the all call out and then they would facilitate that, which is
Yeah.
Good idea, but
Paid
it's,
position for that?
Well, my suggestion was get a volunteer to run the volunteer program. There are quite a few people in this city who are very willing to step up and do things like that. I mean, when I was a detective, we had a woman come in 3 days a week to answer phones. She did it for 25 years after she retired from the gas company. Didn't take a dime, whatever. And so there are volunteers out there that are willing to do a lot of work like that just to get out.
So that it's like two different things, right? It's one would be a point person to spread the word about volunteer opportunities, and the other half would be someone to like write up the certificates or accept the applications. Is that?
They have not figured out how they would run it. I know how I would run it, pretty much because I've run volunteer programs before. But they're still kind of trying to work it out. In fact, it was interesting because they said, well, we haven't reached out to anybody yet. And we'll say, well, we reached out. We've talked to some of the organizations. They're like, oh.
well, there's like the Parks and Rec. You guys have the emails to all the people that run all the groups and whatnot.
Yeah, I'd like to, if I can add just a little bit more detail, but the presentation last night was as Gil described it, but there was, the purpose of it was because the city wanted to create a more comprehensive and robust volunteer program. The initial concern was that there was people that wanted to volunteer and didn't know who to contact or where to go or what opportunities the city had. And so it was really an opportunity for the city to determine how best to attack that and to provide the information at kind of a one-stop shop place. But then as we dug into it a little bit, it became apparent that there was so much more opportunity for better tracking of volunteers and how they apply and all of that. So there's software that you can use to support the number of volunteers if that's necessary to fit your program. So there's just a lot of different aspects of it, and that's what was presented to the council. What this commission developed is the acknowledgement side of it on behalf of the commission. So and what I think Commissioner Escontrias really highlighted last night is that program could be used citywide, and so it's a component of the volunteer program. But what the city was trying to do is to figure out how on the front end to better manage and provide that communication and outreach to potential volunteers.
I think that actually the two-sided, but we also pointed out that the subcommittee had already reached out to many of these organizations. Whether they showed up or not was different, but that they had said that what they had already were looking to do, and we already said we've already done it, and we were more than glad to share the information with them. But they again, when you get a larger program like that citywide, it does require a little bit more hands-on, a little more logistical issues that come in as to managing volunteers, and then each department generally should pick and choose and manage their people accordingly, depending on where the police department has several different types of volunteers and such like that.
I thought we were just talking about like typing out a volunteer certificate. Versus, it sounds like it's much bigger. So
it can be.
Yeah.
You mentioned the joint fundraising committee. The only update I have on that is I thought it was disbanded last time we talked about it.
Oh, I apologize if it was.
I thought
It's no longer necessary? Okay. I will make sure that's updated on next month's report.
Are there any other updates from subcommittees?
Oh.
Then I say we move on to J4, Director's Report.
So I know we tackled a few throughout the meeting, so I only have 2 left. The first one is I am very excited to share with you all the final playground design for Dominguez Park. Before I jump into this, I just want to profusely thank the subcommittee that worked on this. There was a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of meetings, a lot of back and forth emails. And I I hope you all are proud of the final product. I know that I am, and really appreciate all the time and effort that was put into this. And I think the final product is a really great, it's going to turn into a really amazing playground for the community. So I just wanted to extend my thank you for being so responsive and helpful in that regard. So if you all remember, you did approve as a commission the final design for the playground equipment itself. What I provided for you all on the dais are photos of the final playground design that incorporates the playground surfacing. So there was a design elements included in that. It does include 2 different shades of green. There's a lighter shade of green on the exterior, and then a darker shade inside of that, and then there's a blue in the center. And the thought here is that it's almost like a river kind of flowing through the playground, and if kids wanted to kind of track that throughout the playground elements, they could do that. So it's almost another fun little play element that can be utilized there. So it also incorporated some of the colors to complement the final playground equipment itself. So again, this is just really just an opportunity for you all to kind of see the final design that has been presented to City Council and approved. We are moving forward with already putting pieces together to get this installed. So I'll continue to keep you updated on any progress with it. I know Public Works is working on putting out the bid for the demolition and all the site prep work. And we do already have Nate and his team are working with them on the contract for that so they can begin manufacturing. So definitely making progress in that regard. Yes.
Just as somebody on this subcommittee, just so everyone knows, it isn't this bright.
Yes, I should have said that. Thank you.
Yeah, so just reminds. Yeah, so all of these colors, like we really went into the nitty gritty of the surfacing and the different shades of green and blue, and they're much more muted, like a lot more muted than this. This is just very bright. So
yeah, I should have brought the samples in to show you. I apologize. But
no,
thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want everybody to know that that's not. Yeah, it'll look very different in person.
Yeah. Is there an updated timeline on the projected completion?
Last I heard is that things are really moving along as scheduled, and so we're really hoping to have it fully installed by the end of the year.
Wow.
I say that very you never know what can come up, but the goal is for it to be put in the next few months.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And then the final update I have is just my kind of regular plug now to let everyone know that we are continuing to hire for all of our summer programs. We have lifeguards at Seaside Lagoon. We have our regular summer day camp programs. As well as just our typical throughout the year activities at Alta Vista Wilderness Park, senior centers. We are continuing to look for staff. We continue to hold regular interview sessions and are open to any applications that come through. So if you do know of anyone, please share that information. All of the opportunities are available on the city's website. And we're also here to answer any questions if anyone wants to speak directly to staff about any of the positions. So, and with that concludes all of my director's reports. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And moving on to item L is adjournment of meeting. If there's nothing else, then our next meeting of the Redondo Beach Recreation Parks Commission will be held at 7 p.m. on June 14th. 2023. Thanks, everybody.
I apologize. We do need to have a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a motion?
Sorry.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.